Look, the gaming world has a serious case of sequel fatigue right now, and you know the drill. Another year, another Call of Duty, another Assassin's Creed that feels familiar 5 minutes in. Most AAA studios have gotten cozy playing it safe, just rehashing the same formulas over and over because why risk millions on something new? Then, out of nowhere, this trailer for Crimson Desert hits the internet, and honestly it felt like getting smacked in the face by a physics prop and loving every second of it. You see clans clashing in the mud, this main character flipping off shields mid-strike, and environments that look like they're from 5 years into the future. That was everyone's first real peek at Pearl Abyss. Here's the kicker: this Korean studio decided they weren't here to follow the industry's homework. They chose to be the one dev that throws the textbook out the window and wings it. Right now we are drowning in what I like to call the safe sandwich. You've got massive publishers pushing out live service slop and annualized sequels just to keep stock prices high. The innovation is basically dead in that space. That's why seeing Pearl Abyss do their thing with Crimson Desert feels like a breath of fresh air. They came in swinging like it's 2012 again, back when studios took huge creative gambles. So the big question is, why can't everyone else do this? Why are we only seeing 1 or 2 or 3 devs taking those high-risk leaps? Rather than just licensing Unreal Engine 5 like literally every other massive studio on the planet, Pearl Abyss built the Black Space engine from scratch. I mean, they coded this monster in-house specifically for Crimson Desert. Most devs just fight with Epic's tools, trying to force a square peg into a round hole. What's wild is Pearl Abyss went the hard route and built the tools of their own trade. Owning your engine means you're not waiting for updates to fix physics or lighting. You just call your buddy in the next office and say, "Fix this." That kind of vertical integration basically unlocks the game's true potential. Now look at the physics we've seen in the combat gameplays. The way Black Space handles volumetric fog and real-time lighting without tanking your frame rate is actually wild. They have path tracing for gaseous media, which sounds complicated but just looks like hyper-realistic smoke and mist swirling realistically. This engine also supports real-time destructibility, meaning trees snap and buildings should crack during huge battles. Having that proprietary tech stack means Pearl Abyss can push rendering tricks that a one-size-fits-all solution like Unreal just can't handle as smoothly. They aren't bound by external licensing caps, so they can code down to the metal, and honestly, that gives their world a unique feel you just can't copy. Plus, it lets them squeeze out every ounce of performance. That's the real secret sauce right there. Now we have to talk about where Pearl Abyss came from, because it matters a lot. These guys made Black Desert Online, which is basically an MMO famous for its massive player counts and chaotic boss fights where 50 people are spamming spells on screen at once. That taught them how to handle scale without the game exploding. And the thing is, they are taking that muscle memory and slamming it into a focused, high-fidelity single-player story. Traditionally, MMO developers struggle with tight narrative beats because they're too busy with fetch quests. But Pearl Abyss did the opposite. They took the open-world density of a live service game and wrapped it around a protagonist with actual emotional stakes. On top of that, they have these sprawling cities teeming with NPCs that move like they have actual agendas. So basically, you get the huge breathing world of an online game without the lag, plus the polished cutscenes of something like a Sony exclusive. It's that rare transition from MMO giants to narrative kings. Most studios fail at this because they can't shrink the scope down, but Pearl Abyss leaned into the ambition instead of cutting it. What's more, they use their expertise to fill the map with meaningful stuff, not just copy-pasted bandit camps. Just imagine walking through a forest where everything reacts like a real ecosystem. That's Pywell in Crimson Desert. You'll notice grass flattening as you dash through it, mud physically sticking to your character's boots and cape. This isn't just a wallpaper you walk past. The Black Space engine pushes cloth and hair simulations that react to wind direction in real time, so fighting at the top of a mountain feels totally different from battling in a cramped bog. We've all played those empty AAA maps that feel like a movie set. You know, it looks good from a distance, but touch it and it's just a painted backdrop. The truth is, Pearl Abyss prioritized simulation over decoration. The snow crunches with weight, rivers flow with current, and all of that feeds back into how you traverse. You can break trees to bash enemies or use environmental objects as makeshift weapons. These environmental touches aren't just pretty graphics, they change the combat flow. Slipping in the mud changes your footing, wind affects arrow trajectory. It constantly keeps you engaged. Honestly, it makes older open worlds look like cardboard cutouts. Having that kind of immersive sim logic in an action fantasy game is the benchmark we should be asking for. And the best part is, it just feels so dang satisfying to interact with. You can watch any gameplay breakdown of Crimson Desert, and the first thing that punches you in the face is the combat. It's crunchy. Pearl Abyss has this signature rhythm that blends traditional sword and shield with actual wrestling moves. You can literally suplex an orc, then immediately kick his buddy off a cliff. The flow between melee and traversal is shockingly seamless, like you never leave the action state. Plenty of modern games prefer scripted animations. Press one button to initiate the cool finisher, watch the cutscene of the kill, go back to fighting. But here it's all physics and momentum. Moreover, the weight of your weapon directly affects your stamina, and the hit reactions feel body blow heavy. It is aggressive, oppressive, and it demands you actually think about your spacing. Plus, you have this deep skill tree that changes how you approach encounters, not just number boosts. For instance, you can spec into a grappling playstyle that focuses entirely on environmental takedowns rather than pure DPS. It's a gameplay-first mentality that prioritizes how the fight feels over how cinematic it looks while standing still. You know, there are very few moments in open-world RPGs where you have to strain your brain versus the enemies attacking you, but Crimson Desert seems to want that, and honestly, I'm so tired of just kiting dumb AI around a rock. Which brings us to arguably the most underrated feature: the NPCs aren't brain dead. Pearl Abyss built this world where the AI actually feels like it has agency. Like you see bandits adapting to your moves, flanking when you're heavy attacking, or calling for reinforcements based on your threat level. It's not a theme park where rides wait at the end of Yellow Brick Road. It's an ecosystem where animals hunt, villagers go to sleep, and guards react to crime. Now, the studio made a specific choice here that the industry isn't talking about enough. They used human voice actors for all the dialogue. No robotic generic lines. Yeah, they didn't take the cheap AI route. Now think about that. In a time where major publishers are gutting writing departments to save cash, Pearl Abyss paid for real humans to breathe life into random quest givers. That investment in personality means every interaction feels less like an errand and more like a conversation. And plus, the AI schedules mean you might find your quest objective wandering off to the tavern at night, which adds that emergent gameplay we love. It's like they designed the world to function perfectly whether you're watching or not. That's a philosophy most devs abandon because it's hard to code. But when it works, it makes the game feel alive in a way scripted sequences never could. So yeah, props to Pearl Abyss for giving NPCs a spine. Here's a story I can totally respect. Pearl Abyss originally announced Crimson Desert as, an MMO, a prequel to Black Desert Online. That means raids, servers, the whole online grind fest. But halfway through development, the team realized the single-player story they were cooking was the actual star. So what did they do? They pivoted. They completely scrapped the online framework to focus on a pure, no microtransactions, single-player epic. And this is the move that normal corporate studios would never ever allow. Think about the sunk cost of all that network coding. They just threw it out because they believed in the vibe. That level of creative risk is basically unheard of in the AAA space controlled by shareholders. Now, does this mean the game is perfect? Not exactly, but the trust in the director's vision is what yields cult classics. Pearl Abyss was brave enough to swap genres midstream because they knew or maybe felt the narrative hook was stronger. And that resulted in a game that feels laser-focused, not bloated by live service chores. Not to mention, they kept the graphics high enough that an MMO wouldn't have been able to handle it anyway. So in a world of games as a service and battle passes, they walked away from the money printer to give us an art piece. Honestly, that deserves a round of applause. We have to address the visual bar because Pearl Abyss is aiming for the quadruple A crown. This game looks absurdly dense. Walk through the city squares at night, and you'll see massive crowds moving in real time with torches casting dynamic shadows everywhere. The volumetric lighting doesn't just look good, it feels thick, like the air is heavy. Plus, the draw distance lets you see enemy encampments miles away without pop-in ruining the mood. The raw technical density is wild. We're talking about a massive 60 gigabyte install that crams more detail into a single town than most entire game maps. What's more, the game runs at native 4K with ray tracing at decent frame rates on high-end hardware, which is rare in an industry filled with DLSS crutches. Basically, they are forcing Western giants like EA and Ubisoft to wake up. When a Korean studio can push pixels this hard and optimize the game to not crash, it shows that lazy optimization isn't acceptable anymore. It sets a new visual benchmark that tells the big boys, stop resting on your laurels. This is the kick in the pants the Western AAA industry needed. The reason Pearl Abyss can take these wild swings is simple. There is no corporate middleman demanding a slice. They are their own publisher. They own the entire stack, from the dev team to the marketing budget, which means no EA rep is leaning over a dev's shoulder telling them to insert a pay-to-win currency just to hit quarterly profit goals. Most self-published indies are small, but Pearl Abyss is huge, yet they hold that indie spirit. They rejected a Sony-timed exclusivity deal. They walked away from a massive check because they wanted the game on all platforms day one. That decision says everything. For real, they'd rather keep their creative purity than sacrifice the player experience for quick cash. This independence means no rushed launches, no tacked-on battle royale modes, just a game that's ready when it's ready. You can see it in the pricing structure too. It's just a full game for a flat price, no nickel and diming. Look, at the end of the day, we need more of that Pearl Abyss energy in the industry. It's a call to action for the rest of them. Stop chasing trends like extraction shooters and hero collectors just because Fortnite did it. Start building proprietary tech, start crafting original worlds, and investing in real AI. The blueprint is sitting right there on the table. If a South Korean studio, traditionally known for grind-heavy MMOs, can pivot, build an engine from scratch, and redefine the open-world genre, what's the excuse for everyone else? They showed us it's possible to have insane graphics, deep systems, and a soul. Seeing this disruptor succeed with Crimson Desert now sitting at millions of copies sold is proof that gamers are starving for this level of ambition. So the next time some executive tells you players don't want innovation, tell them to go watch a Pearl Abyss trailer. That's the future we should be asking for. And honestly, if the rest of them don't step up, they're just going to get left in the dust.